Started. So welcome everyone. I'm moderating this today, but Nathan and Joe really are the ones who are going to be talking to you for the most part. So Nathan and Joe are both from the University of Florida. Nathan's actually on the same team as I am, and Joe has been a Salesforce user for many years. First, that was at the registrar's office, and now he's moved into a little bit more of a technical data role with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So he's a great partner for us, sort of between all of the academic advisors that we have on campus using Salesforce. And then he helps really do a great job bridging the gap and maybe preventing us from hearing some things that really don't need to get to us. So today they're going to be talking about the advising solution we built. So I will turn it over to them, and I'm going to share my screen and let them go.
Cool. I can get off here and just really thank everyone for attending here. We're here to talk about how we moved from the college petition process from like a paper-like procedure to an absolutely fully online portal. We hope that many of your processes, especially the ones that involve paper or something like email, fit into a template like this. And we hope to convince you to design and adopt a solution a lot like this one. And that's us. Cool. So first of all, what is a college petition, right? So there's something that at the University of Florida is something that's different between college petition and a university petition. A college petition is something that's done locally at an individual college level, as opposed to a university procedure process that is overarching the entire university. So the college petitions team, we call them the CPET team because we in higher ed love to shorten things. They're an anonymous group of people who make decisions regarding exemptions to college policies, such as timely graduation, additional course drops, or continuing in the major. We say anonymous to the students so we don't have them put pressure on advisors when they're meeting with them in appointments. So our story here is interspersed with quotes that I've received from the team. I solicited that in leading up to this presentation. We have screenshots of like the old process and the new process, and then the green quotes that are in the on the slides are quotes, real quotes we have from advisors on the team. So prior to 2020, we had a lot of processes, a lot of processes on campus. They moved from paper to online of some sort. Something happened in 2020. We all know that story. Personally, I think that alone, just moving online from physical paper to some kind of PDF is a huge win in itself. Even still, I'd say the process had a lot of pain points. We had things like back and forth with the student regarding incomplete submissions. So they'd send half the petition and not the other half. I was like, we have to email them back and forth and everything. The file still had to be downloaded and stored in like internal share drive. A folder would have to be created if one didn't exist. If one did exist, we might create duplicate folders. Then we have to follow naming conventions. You get the idea. So there really wasn't a method for students also to see what the visibility of their status was. So they have to email people, and then we have to go check, and then that just caused a lot more time there. We had no idea how many petitions we had of each type, like when our spikes were, what our approval denial rate is or was. And we get those questions a lot of time from management. Like many of you will get that from management. Like, hey, I want to know A, B, C, D, E, and you can't really anticipate the questions. So all these requirements that we had were something that we wanted to move forward with, making a portal of some sort, and they all became drivers of change. So there were things that the college wanted to implement for a long time, and we didn't have a means to do so. Really what it came down to was the previous college petitions chair and I were told to identify a bunch. The story was to identify transfer students who were denied a graduation extension petition. So this is something where we are giving them certain students who started first time in college a set amount of time. We were giving transfer students basically half of that time. and the policy had changed. So we were allowing transfer students to get a little bit more. So the final straw really was we were asked to find a specific population of students, and we had to comb through advising notes, which to the data people out there, advising notes are essentially just strings of text that are attached to a student record. And we had to query through that actual text and hope that the petition's secretary and the petition's chair had typed it in the exact same way and spelled it the same way. So when we finished with that, I nudged her. I'm like, hey, can we like move this online in such a way, to get this so that we don't have to do this again? Like, this will come up again one way or another. So can we just get this online? So to kind of role play here a little bit, there's, for those of you who haven't done the poll, we have a poll in the session tab under polls. We want you to tell us what you think the academic petition on the drop down here is the most frequent. So this is something that our administration would come to us and ask, and we wouldn't know until we move to this platform. We will find out the answer later.
All right, thanks, Joe. So really, we start off building this process. We have stakeholder mappings, which is basically, all the parties coming together, talking about the problem, and seeing what we can do to alleviate those pain points. When we come together, it's important to get the advisor's perspective. I mean, Joe is a great resource, but to have everyone that's actually like in the mud doing all the work, get their perspective to not only alleviate those pain points, but also maybe enhance the process, from good to great. What we ended up doing and fitting it in Salesforce was basically folding it into what we call advising support. This is just a customized object within Salesforce. Our org at UF has tons of them. It really depends on the scope of what you're talking about. Some of them are college-oriented versus process-oriented. So the College of Medicine has their own, College of Pharmacy, or human resources might have their own, or student affairs, and in this instance, it's advising support. So this allows us to kind of basically have flexibility and scalability for some places large as UF. And it also works for serving as a foundation point for reporting and things like that. We end up saying that, okay, we're going to move this into form assembly, create a form, and have the students submit that. And that's going to be kind of the foundation of everything. So as we're mapping this out, of course, there's challenges. We got to think about, who has permission, who has access to what, how we want the form to look, and the logic of those things. Form assembly is our tool that we use. It's a pretty good tool that we have, and it allows us to kind of, it checks all those boxes that we needed for this particular solution. You can go to the next one, Brian. So as I was saying, this is our form builder, form assembly. In the back end, it has lots of easy to manage connectors for mapping any fields that you want, really. This provided a lot better. It's a lot better to manage in the back end in sense of like, as we present a new product and we have, this version of the form, and maybe Joe and company needs something added, a new drop down, something like that. It's very easy for us to update that and very quick, especially since we work closely together on this project. It's very easy to improve everything. Form assembly is pretty good for flexibility in terms of custom code. And that was important for this particular form because although form assembly, I would say, is kind of simple in design, the way that we manage it, it allows you to make it complex if it need to be, or allows itself flexibility to adhere to complex situations. So in this form, we needed to have, certain drop downs or certain periods or certain options available during certain periods of time. So you have a timetable on in the back end. You can create custom codes using JavaScript to basically alleviate that and say, oh, I only want to see X versus in May, and then I only want to see Y in June or something like that. It also allows us to have access control. We put a lot of things here behind what we call Gator Link authentication, which is basically just a login portal. You would have to log in using your UF credentials, and this allows us to know exactly who we're dealing with, and allows another layer of security behind the form, so we can pre-populate things for you. We can go to the next one. So this is the cycle of kind of what the process looks like. So now, with this new process, a student would have access to the form, via online, or they go and speak to an advisor. The advisor sends them the link. So they would complete that online form, state all the reasons, what they're petitioning, why they're doing so. And then once they hit submit, that record is created in Salesforce. It's created as an advising support record, as a petition. And then someone like Joe or Rachel or anyone else that's on the advising team would review that petition and make updates, see what needs to be done. Maybe they need to talk to a colleague, work on something, go review it with the petition committee, and then make changes. So that was an easier process. And when they make changes, they add a decision, say what they need to say, and update some fields. And that's important because once they update specific fields on the record that we created for them, it'll trigger an email over to the student back to it. So there doesn't need to be like an interaction waiting for the student is waiting for a bunch of things, and Joe has to make sure, I did this petition, now I have to go email. It's all automated, so it makes things a whole lot easier and a lot quicker when they're going through that process. And there's some quotes. A lot of advisors can now see all the information because it's in Salesforce. It's a lot easier to access, and it's well integrated. So it allows tracking and, kind of an audit trail of the whole situation. All right. You can go to the next one. And so these are just some screenshots of that process. So that screenshot on the left is a test of the form. So if this is a test for Joe looking at the form if he was logged in. So I mentioned earlier that there's an authentication wall. So Joe would have had to enter his UF credentials. And this is important because when we can build the form in form assembly to essentially take those credentials, look into our database and see what is in there, who this person is, what's attached to them, and display it if we need to. So we got their name and email, so he doesn't need to enter any of that information. And one of the features that I like that we implemented with this form, and it makes things a little bit easier on the advising side, is that it'll show anything that is under review at the moment. So if a student wanted to see maybe what the status of a particular petition was at the moment, they could go back to that form, and there's a little section they can see. So on that particular screenshot, it's just an example. They can see that it's under review. This is the type of petition they submitted and when they submitted it. So if they call or need to email or do something in the future, they have that information and that record number there for them. As soon as they hit submit, they would receive a automated email. So, the advisor doesn't need to do that step anymore. It's just an automated email, which is the screenshot on the right, tells them that record ID that I was saying, the type, and exactly, where they would need to go. And all that can be customized and tailored to, whoever needs to send out that information, who's it sending from and who's it sending to. All right, we can go to the next one. And this is the record within Salesforce after the fact that, a staff member such as Joe or an advisor would look at. This is an important piece because this is kind of like the bread and butter. This is like the better solution than we had before. So you can see that the record on the left is the details tab. It has all the information of the student submitted. We can customize it out. We can add extra fields that, help internally for the staff member. It's already attached to the particular contact or the student. In this case, it's Joe. And it has all the related records. So advisor notes are like another related record that you see on the bottom right. And the bottom left, there's petition courses. So this particular submission was for extra drops. And in that part of the form, the student would basically describe or input what courses they're looking to get extra drops on or what they're petitioning. And we create a separate record, attach it to this petition, and it's all in one spot, readily available. Any files that they submit with their petitions, it's all there that you can see. There's a tracking history on the whole thing. So if anyone changes anything on this form or this record that we're looking at, you'll see another member if Joe changed something and another advisor came in and wanted to look at this record, they could say, okay, Joe changed this field to be this field on this date and XYZ. So yeah, all right, we can go to the next one. So this is kind of what I was saying. So if he changes a field, you would have history on it, but this particular field is the status on this advising petition. And when they change that status, it's important because this is another advantage of having in Salesforce. We can build automations to trigger more emails to go out if that needs to be the case. So when an advisor would come in here, change the status from under reviewed to denied, canceled, approved, whatever the status may be, they type their reasoning in the decision field, and then they just change the status. And as soon as they do that, it'll send an email off to the student associated with the record. And that's exactly what you see on the right there. It has the decision, it has the status, it has the type, and the decision is just a text field. So, I mean, you could put anything we wanted in there. This is just a test example, but it has all the information that you would need when you're changing it over. All right, next one. And now this is essentially what if an advisor came in after the fact and wanted to look up, hey, okay, Joe submitted a petition on this date, it was denied, this happened, or maybe they don't know that information, since just calling and they're just wanting to follow up on why they were denied or something like that. And I wanted to see, I could pull up the student's record being Joe, and I could see all those related fields under there. I would go to the advising support, and then I see that petition right there, extra drops denied, and when it was created, and then I could click into it to see why it was denied and see all that information that we were seeing in the previous slide. So this really serves as kind of you kind of get a whole cohesive overview of the whole process. It makes things a lot more streamlined for someone working, and after the fact, it would improve reporting as well. So it just makes the process a whole lot easier. I think it's a cleaner solution that we've been able to build. And the nice thing too is it's pretty malleable. I mean, we can change things and update things as things go along, improve the process, which we did tons of times, particularly for this form. We've improved the form, improved the process several times after go live. And that's kind of the nice part about being flexible in Salesforce and having a record like this. All right. And I'll flip it back over to Joe to discuss the outcomes and reporting and stuff like that.
Cool. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for the process overview there. On the screen, you can see the results from mostly the first year of our new system. We started in early February, and you can see the total volume that was implemented here. Here, you will also see the answer to the poll. Looking at the poll here, we have people voted for major change major, special circumstance, and then second was drop after deadline. And then the actual answer was continuation and major. So a lot of students, when we have this thing at University of Florida, where it's critical tracking. So if they are off, quote unquote, off track on what they're supposed to do, they have to petition the college. It's not a university petition. They petition the college to stay in that major. So a lot of students who are pre-health or pre-health related majors, they flunk chemistry or so, they will get flagged for being off track, and they have to petition the college to stay in that said major. So we have gotten incredibly positive feedback from people, and the quotes I have are things like the learning curve is super easy, thanks to Nathan, Brian, their team there. Salesforce is super intuitive. It's been a great innovation and improved efficiency for students and staff. So this is fantastic. So unlike before, also we're not able to see any of the data from the total types or approve or deny. And on the next slide, you can see that the approval denial rates are about 60-40 in terms of what we approve versus deny. We have a little over 500 petitions closed throughout this year. So if you're familiar with the Salesforce reporting tools, this is the typical stuff that you'll see. You'll recognize the screenshots here as well. So before then, we're able to feel for the data. Like, oh, maybe we're a little bit higher during the drop ad period or before the drop deadline period. But now we can actually prove it. Hey, before maybe continuation in major or extra drops, we felt like it was the most, but now we can actually very, very easily prove it. So some of the unintended bonuses that we got were, one of the things we were asked after go live was we wanted to see all of the petitions that the student had before. Before, we could have looked in the advising notes for the student, but we'd have to go through and scroll and make sure that this is an advising note related to a petition. Just like Nathan mentioned previously, a lot of things we did, we went back and forth on a lot of things we didn't even think about when we first made the requirements for it. So one of the advisors said it also helps the office as a whole to have awareness of the status of the petitions for the students that have submitted. So additionally, we're able to gain a little bit of additional efficiency when we're transitioning members between the rotating members between the college petitions committee, so that because everyone really has access to it, all you have to do is know where to look. And then now you're on the committee, then you just go in this repository and see the open petitions, and then you review them. So there's nothing like having to add or remove security from a Dropbox or from a repository somewhere. And because technically speaking, everyone has access, it just everything's audit trailed, and it doesn't really matter in terms of how we're able to secure that. Funny anecdote here is when we were testing this presentation about a few weeks ago, I got a message from our director of advising, and she asked, "Hey, do we have any petitions from the 2024 year?" And I literally said, "No, like we don't have full records of this. We're actually working on a presentation about how we're doing this, and we have the data for this current calendar year of 2025 because we started in February." But that's it. We don't, like before, we really kind of have to guess and or mine through the text. Cool. And I think that is it. So thank you all for attending our presentation. We can open up for questions. I think I saw at least one question in the chat. And the question was from Tara Lopez. I think it looks like can be routed to other colleagues in the workflow process. I was answering that one and I said, this one isn't really routed. This is all routed, all in one spot. And you have to, as an advisor on the team, you would go find the open petitions, but I can let Nathan and Brian speak to the platform and possibly how it could be routed.
Yeah, so the way we have it set up is that we just have list view set up for a specific record type, being petitions, so you have the advising support object, and then we have a record type of that because we use that object for various other things, change of major, probation, a bunch of other advising related processes that we have. We just have it routed to list view. You could get more specific with it and route it to particular people automatically if you wanted to. For this particular process, we just have it live in one area, and that works for us. But yeah, I mean, the possibilities are pretty wide open when you want to route anywhere, so that'd be fine.
Yeah, the routing natively in Salesforce, it's not DocuSign per se, right? Like if you need complex routing and all of that, and an actual signature and a certificate of completion, that type of stuff, what we usually do is we integrate with DocuSign, and we'll have a group use that and integrate it with Salesforce. For this and some other processes that we have, we really try and limit it to a couple people in terms of approvers, and usually we do have one process we built out where it goes from the first level to the second, but it's not the easiest native thing to do in Salesforce, but it's possible. But I think what Nathan was saying here, we would probably just transfer that record to another advising group, but we haven't got that far yet.
Let's see.
Salesforce. I think there was a question about our Salesforce edition. Can take that one. Yeah, we started 7 years ago, this enterprise org. We have 1,200 users. About a little over 200 are advisors. So we do use EDA objects. We do not have Education Cloud. We were way early. We've built out a lot of custom stuff, but we do populate and use at least 12, maybe 14 of the EDA objects, and that's largely populated via integration as well.
We got, how do you set up stakeholders per petition type? If you mean users, we just set up permissions for who needs to have it. The advisors, kind of the way we've structured our org is we have permission sets based off of like the group's dynamics of the department is, all the people in class. The College of Liberal Arts and Science here at UF will have a permission set based around that and what they need access to. Sometimes it's object specific. So if we have, maybe only 20% of the people in class need to see petitions or something like that, we would have a permission set for that and give access to those users specifically for it. I'm sure you could, if you had many different types and you wanted to get more granular like that, we could set that up and have that be more limited. You can get into sharing roles and all that, but that's just not what we do at this moment. And then we had another one. When a student logs into Form Assembly, do they see all their previous petitions? At this time, they don't. They'll see, I believe, under review or basically in process. That's how we have it set up. If they saw everything, it would kind of get bogged down. Like if a student submitted several, or like 10, for example, you don't want that to serve as kind of like a record base for just a person to look at. You could set it up that way. We didn't. We just want to show like what's pending in the moment, and then they can follow up with that if needed. If they wanted to know something in the past, they could always reach out to class who's handling this information and get any records they need. So.
Piggybacking off that, I'd say that definitely we made the choice to show the record like ID number to the student, and I think that's kind of intentional there, because I think a lot of times we think that students, customers, in general aren't, may not just be tech savvy and everything, but like having that record ID is extremely helpful because we can troubleshoot something like that on the phone. Like, hey, there's a record number. You would have been emailed that. Can you tell us your ADV number so that way we can make sure to find it, especially if it's not tied to you for whatever reason. So I love, as a data analyst, that's my day job. Salesforce pusher is kind of my side gig over here. But as a data analyst, I love ID numbers and everything like that. Then the second question here is there an object history audit? Yes, there is. It's built in natively with the Salesforce object for us, and we can see so that everyone in the office, even those who are not on the petitions committee, if they go start messing with our petitions, we'll know who did it, and we'll find them and be like, hey, cut it out. Don't be approving everyone's petition just because you feel like it. But yes, so there is an audit trail. Absolutely. Every change is there.
I actually have a question, Joe, that I don't know the answer to. You're entering something into Campus Solutions, I assume, after this, or is Salesforce the only system of record for this?
Yes. So we enter in the advising notes. So we still maintain that process. So that process that the previous chair and I had to go through and dig through the text to find that, we are maintaining that. And so we've limited the petitions secretary's job from managing all the files and printing all the stuff and entering it in the advising notes to really just doing the advising notes. And to be honest, it's such an easy task that we might be able to just move that to me and relieve her from that and have her, have her talents and focus on something more strenuous, of course. But it's really just the advising notes. That's all we're doing.
Any other questions out there that anyone has?
Sounds like a technical question.
The history, we're not using like notes and activities. Our history in our org, at least, has persisted on fields that we track. It's a little, I mean, we don't have Shield. There's some nuance to it, but we don't. And Salesforce is really, in the end, the system of record for this is still the advising note. So we do have that transaction history in Salesforce. We back up Salesforce on a daily basis as well. So if we truly needed to get in there to a record that happened, 2 years ago and see if what advisor changed what field and whatnot, we always could dig back into it and get that data. It's usually not a request that happens too often, but it's a reason why we all pay for backup services that rarely gets used, just to have it there. Yeah, it's one of the fields, the 20 fields that we have, and like I said, it gets backed up. Everything in our org gets backed up daily, and I don't know, Joe, you can maybe answer, but most of that history is going to probably just be looked at right around when it's submitted or shortly after.
The audit history, I think that's only if we wanted to find something. I think it's more of a safety net. I don't think we've meaningfully looked at the history in terms of that, because we've asked for something like a final state status. We kind of, I remember going back and forth with the team whether we wanted something like an approved or denied, but then also we have an appeals process, so I want to know if it's something appealed approved or appealed denied. After that, it's really we'd only ever look if there's who did this, and that hasn't happened yet with 500 petitions. So let's hope it doesn't.
And there was one other question that I was going to answer. So here, Joe, I mean, I think everyone is using, all the users are Salesforce users on the side in terms of who's updating records and approving, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just going to say we have a lot of other processes too, where we'll use form assembly, where we'll still do an approval process as well, but we use a form assembly form to pre-fill, because not all of our approvers are Salesforce users. In this case, it's nice and easy. That's an ideal scenario for us if everyone who needs to approve and update fields is a Salesforce user. But licenses are not cheap, and sometimes there's a chair or someone in a department that needs to have some sort of impact on the record, and they only do it a handful of times each year. So we will use form assembly in those instances to kind of pre-fill a record and allow someone who's not a Salesforce user to approve. All right, we've got 6 minutes left. Any other questions, or Joe or Nathan, anything else you want to add?
Just that I love working with the team. I tell them every time that this is my favorite team to work with. So I'm on the record for that now.
Well, you certainly keep us busy, so.
Always happy to.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for everyone and your engagement and questions. And throughout the day, you could still come back in here. And all our sessions are recorded. Oh, we've got one more question. I'll let one of you guys take that. Nathan, probably.
So for petitions at the moment, yeah, we just have it implemented with a particular college at this time. But, I mean, we can expand it if needed. We have, I mean, that object is used in kind of similar ways, not necessarily for petitions, but for probation and other advising related things. So it's kind of like a simple or a similar type of process. The graduate school here at UF also has a petitions process, but they use a different kind of support record for that. And that's, catered to them in their process and their business process. So this particular one that we talked about today has just been catered to this particular college or this group, but it works for them. And we have similar solutions for other groups across campus too. So not the exact same, but to answer your question, yeah, we have it implemented across, just in different flavors.
Yeah, and I said 1,200 users, you may think we have this big top-down initiative where, everyone top-down has a strategy and whatnot. That is not the case. We're pretty much grassroots. We started 7 years ago with about 200 users in enrollment management offices, and then just slowly bought licenses in chunks of 20 or 10 or 50 sometimes up to 1,200. So what our strategy is for Nathan and I and the team we're on in UFIT is to find partners like Joe. And we say no a lot. Joe probably has 50 other forms that he would like us to do, and we've told him no because there's not scale. What we're looking for, and we've done this with the College of Engineering and a couple other groups, is we're looking to build a form like this that scales. We're never going to have all the advising offices on campus come together and say, hey, we want this. It's a big year project. Let's build it out. That's just not going to happen where we're at. But we're also not going to have, build out a whole process that's just for liberal arts and sciences that doesn't maybe scale and apply to other groups. So we'll, a year from now, we'll probably have some other groups using this. We do some advising worksheets, and there's a handful of other processes we built out for advisors that are similar to this. And one is because the College of Engineering came and we evaluated it and said, all right, this is a process that actually scales to other colleges. They're not ready. They're not interested right now, potentially, but we'll have it. We'll build it because it's scalable. So that's kind of been our approach to how we, at least in our political environment here, are able to build things and scale. Yep. All right, 2 minutes left. There's a lot of other great sessions today. This one's recorded, just like all the other ones. If you wanted to come back and watch anything or pick up, and you could, of course, reach out to any of us. You can find us on LinkedIn pretty easy as well. So thanks, Joe. Thanks, Nathan. Hope everyone has a great rest of Higher Ed Dreamin.
Thank you.
Have a good day.